Welcome to the Return to Yourself podcast, a space to reconnect, reflect, and move forward with clarity and intention. I'm Dr. Michelle Garcia-Olp, and each week we'll explore what it means to slow down, understand yourself more deeply, and begin making choices that feel aligned with who you truly are. You don't need to have everything figured out. You can begin exactly where you are. Welcome to episode 1, What Disconnection Feels Like. There's a feeling that's hard to explain, but once you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's that quiet sense that something feels, off. Not necessarily wrong, not necessarily broken, but not fully right either. You might be going through your day, doing everything you were supposed to be doing, showing up, being productive, keeping up with responsibilities. And yet, underneath all of that, there's a sense of disconnection. Like you are moving through your life, but not fully inside of it. I remember a time in my life when I felt this really clearly. I was living in New Mexico, I had just had my children, and I was balancing motherhood and teaching at the same time. From the outside, everything looked fine. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, going to work, picking my kids up from daycare, coming home, making dinner, doing the bedtime routine, and then waking up the next day and doing it all over again. But underneath all of that, something felt off. I didn't have the language for it at the time. I didn't know if it was just the exhaustion of being a new mom or a bigger life shift. But I remember thinking, there has to be more than just making it through the day. Because that's what it felt like I was doing, just making it through, simply surviving. My kids brought me so much joy, but at the same time I felt overwhelmed, exhausted, and unclear. I didn't feel like I had the energy or even the space to stop and ask myself how I actually felt. I was saying yes to everything. I was definitely a people pleaser. Moving from one thing to the next without really thinking, without really feeling. And my emotions were leading everything, not in a way that felt grounded, but in a way that felt like I was constantly reacting, instead of choosing. And I think the hardest part was I didn't know anything different. I remember wondering, is this just what life looks like as a working mom? And that question was really the beginning of everything for me. And the reason I'm sharing that is because this is what disconnection often looks like. It doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't always look like something is falling apart. Sometimes it looks like everything is functioning, but you're not fully connected to yourself within it. Disconnection doesn't always show up in obvious ways. Sometimes it looks like second-guessing your decisions, feeling unsure of what you actually want, saying yes and then feeling off afterwards. Or even just this quiet thought, I don't feel like myself lately. And the truth is, this doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly and over time. It's easy to shift into doing what's expected, responding quickly, keeping up, moving from one thing to the next. And somewhere in that process, you may stop pausing long enough to notice, how do I actually feel? What do I actually need? Not because you don't care, but because life moves fast. And when life moves fast, you adapt, you learn to keep going, how to respond quickly, how to stay on track. And this is what is called living on autopilot. You're still functioning, you're still doing what needs to be done, but your connection to yourself starts to feel quieter and more distant. You may notice you're reacting instead of choosing, you're following patterns instead of checking in. You are moving forward, but without clarity. And the hardest part, most people don't even realize it's happening. I know I didn't. I want to pause here and say something important. There's nothing wrong with you. Disconnection is not a failure. It's often just a sign that you've been moving without pausing. You've been responding without checking in. You've been prioritizing everything around you and not giving yourself space to notice what's happening within you. And for many people, this has been the pattern for a long time. This is where everything begins to shift. However, awareness is the turning point. This is where everything begins to shift. Not with a big decision, not with fixing everything, but with awareness. Just noticing that you may feel disconnected. That moment right there, that's the beginning of returning to yourself. And awareness doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't require hours of reflection or having the perfect words. It can look like noticing your energy during the day, realizing you said yes when you wanted to say no, recognizing that something feels off even if you can't explain it. These small moments matter because the goal isn't to fix yourself, it's to begin noticing yourself. So today, I want to offer you something simple, not something overwhelming, not something complicated, just a small pause. At some point today, take a moment and ask yourself, how do I actually feel right now? And when you ask that, you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to analyze it. Just simply notice. Because the goal isn't to become someone new. It's to reconnect with what's already there. And that doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments, like this one. Before we close, take a moment to acknowledge yourself for being here, for taking the time to listen, to pause, and to reflect. Even choosing to become more aware. It's a meaningful step. You may not have everything figured out, but you are noticing, you're reflecting, you're beginning to see something new, and that matters. You can also take a moment to appreciate where you are right now, and the small ways you are growing, even if they're not fully visible yet. Growth doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it's awareness, sometimes it's a pause, sometimes it's simply being present. And all of that counts. If this resonated with you, I created a 30-day guided journal and a deeper reflection workbook to support you in this process, to help you reconnect, understand your patterns, and move forward with clarity. I'm going to pause here and read you an opening from the reflection workbook. Here's the introduction to the workbook that I created. There comes a moment when you realize you've drifted away from who you once were, and going back feels impossible. Life became full, responsibilities grew, and somewhere along the way your inner voice softened, then quieted, until it became harder to hear. This workbook is not here to fix you, because you are not broken. You are becoming more of who you are, and always have been. Across cultures and traditions, there's a shared understanding that what is worn, cracked, or marked by time is not something to discard, but something to honor, restore, and reimagine. I refer to this as sacred repair. In Japan, the art of kintsugi, pottery with gold, illuminating the cracks rather than hiding them. In Mesoamerican traditions, Dia de los Muertos honors loss by transforming grief into a bridge that connects and remembers. In Tibetan Buddhist traditions, the creation of intricate sand mandalas reflects the understanding that creation and letting go are part of the same cycle. As these detailed designs are carefully formed and then ritually dismantled, allowing what was created to be honored, transformed, and released. Across many indigenous traditions, textiles are repaired and preserved in ways that honor continuity, story, and identity, where signs of wear are not hidden but become part of what is carried forward. Each of these traditions reflects a deeper truth. What you have lived through is not something to erase, but something to carry forward with meaning. This workbook is a guide to help you begin integrating your own form of sacred repair, where your experiences are honored rather than hidden, and where your story becomes a source of strength rather than something to move past. It offers a gentle return to your inner self, your inner voice, and your inner strength, while also honoring where you've been and the person you are becoming. This workbook also offers prompts for writing, meditations, and affirmations. You can find the 30-day guided journal and the deeper reflection workbook linked to the podcast bio. And if this episode speaks to you, I'd love for you to follow the podcast and share it with someone who might need this message today. Thank you for being here, and remember, you can return to yourself again and again.